Today's edition of the Dallas Cowboys Report is sponsored by Mint Mobile. They are changing the game in cell phone wireless coverage. Their plans start as low as $15 a month, and it runs on the largest 5G network. Try it out today. MintMobile.com/chatsports. They're sponsoring today's absolutely loaded Dallas Cowboys Report. Some interesting rumors and news. We'll talk trade. Could Roquan Smith come to the Cowboys? Many of you asking about it. I told you we'd do a video on it. Also, a Nelson Agholor trade idea I want to explore. Some Simi Fehoko hype we're going to break down, and some depth chart takeaways of the emphasis on unofficial depth chart from the Cowboys. But we begin with the number one NFL story, Roquan Smith. The Bears' star linebacker has requested a trade out of Chicago as contract negotiations have not gone very well. And even ESPN has linked the Dallas Cowboys as a potential destination for Smith. Now, a big part of a potential trade is the money. He's got 1 year left at $9.74 million. He also wants a massive new contract. Remember, when you extend Roquan Smith, you'll bring his cap hit down in 2022. Here's what ESPN wrote. The Cowboys have been prudent in their pursuit of talent, prioritizing homegrown talent in recent years. But it's hard to ignore Smith's fit in the defense, as scouts and execs see it, because Leighton Vander Esch's 1 year, $2 million deal signed in March suggests he's not the long-term answer, and Micah Parsons is considered too good of a pass rusher to stay at linebacker for too long. The Cowboys did sign Anthony Barr at the position last week. I think that's all fairly accurate from ESPN, and I am open to finding more ways to allow Parsons to play the pass rusher role. And there's no doubt that Roquan Smith is a premier talent. He is one of the better off-ball linebackers in the NFL. Is he the best off-ball linebacker in the entire NFL? I'm not necessarily sure that's really the case from that standpoint in terms of what he brings in a coverage standpoint. But as a run stopper, as just a tackling machine, he's certainly up there from that standpoint in terms of being able to make a bunch of big-time plays. Now, what matters here is the future of the money. In general, and this is what we've talked about for a long time, the next best guy, whether you're the best linebacker, best off-ball linebacker or not, the next premier guy is going to get paid like it. Shaquille Leonard is the highest paid off-ball linebacker, and I think he's better than Roquan. So I think Fred Warner's better too, but they're all in that premier range. Roquan Smith wants to be the highest paid off-ball linebacker in the NFL. Do you want to pay him $20 million and give up a premium asset? That's a little bit more uncertain, I think, in terms of the pure value there. And the trade value has been all over the map. ESPN said maybe a third. That seems way too low. NFL Network said maybe a first rounder. That seems a little high for me. I'll meet somewhere in the middle after consulting with Bears Now host Harrison Graham. How about Jabril Cox and a second rounder? Remember, if you trade for Roquan Smith, he's your number one linebacker, short-term, long-term, for the next 5 years. I think that's roughly the value. Maybe you could do a third and Jabril Cox, but I think they would want a under-contract piece. We're going to spend some more time. I'll give you my thoughts overall on Roquan Smith after setting the scene here. But would you trade for him? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off in the comments section at the pinned comment. That's what this question is. So if the ad break comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let us know. Stating the obvious here, Roquan Smith is a great football player. He is awesome, and the idea of him in Dallas is super fun. I think in the end, he's too costly, A, for the Cowboys organization, but also for how I would prefer to allocate my resources and from both a money perspective and a draft capital perspective. I don't think you need to throw a record-setting contract and a premium pick at another off-ball linebacker. We've done that enough in Dallas. I would rather look elsewhere. I'm not desperate to get Roquan Smith. If I can get him on the cheap, in terms of maybe if it's only like a third-round pick, I might start to adjust my mindset there. If it is that cheap, I don't think it's going to be, though. It's a fun idea, I won't lie. It's a fun Madden-style trade of, man, you add Roquan with the defense. That's one of the best defenses in the NFL. Like, that can carry you so far, but I also am not going to get my hopes up because we know how the Cowboys tend to run things. So, fun idea. Makes at least some sense. No, I wouldn't do it at the cost, and I doubt the Cowboys would. Frankly, this falls in the Debo DK category for me. I bet Roquan ends up getting paid by Chicago. Today's show is made possible by our good friends over at Mint Mobile. Unlimited premium wireless starting at just $15 a month. The cell phone company owned by Ryan Reynolds is absolutely changing the game. Unlimited talk and text and high-speed data that runs on the largest 5G network. Head over to mintmobile.com/chatsports. Make the switch like I did. Their eSIM cards make it super easy, by the way. Links in the comments section and the description. It's mintmobile.com/chatsports. Talking more trade now, this time on Nelson Agholor. This one's interesting. Bleacher Report suggested the idea of going out and adding Agholor for the Dallas Cowboys. His production struggled last year for a team that did run the football quite a bit, but he was also outplayed by Kendrick Bourne. He does, however, offer the vertical ability as a speed and downfield threat that the Cowboys don't really have. He's also due $9.88 million this year. Agholor's been kind of an every other year guy. He was almost out of the league after 2019. The Raiders gave him a one-year deal, and he balled out his best year ever. Almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns, 18.7 yards per catch. But that also looks a bit like an outlier year compared to the other ones. The former first-round pick out of USC was a bust for Philadelphia, saved his career in Las Vegas, was a disappointment for the Patriots last season. He does, like I mentioned, he would be an upgrade over I call it the James Washington role, right? The short-term receiver that gives you vertical threat ability that wouldn't have to be an every down, like your number one guy. Like he could be a rotation piece, a role player for you, but it's a valuable role in the end. Now, Bleacher Report said day 3 draft pick gets it done, and I think that is pretty accurate. And it might not even be that much from that standpoint. I'll break down why in a second. But first, would you trade for Nelson Agholor? Sound off in the comments. T for trade or P for pass. I say pass. He's too expensive for me. $9.88 million is a lot of money to pay for a guy that fills a vertical threat role. I can find that guy in free agency in Will Fuller. I could find someone who gets cut and or is cheaper via a trade acquisition. So if Agholor somehow gets cut, very different conversation. I don't see it happening, though. If he ends up on the trade market, which I think he could be, given the Patriots have all of the speed receivers now in Tyquan Thornton, Bourne, and Agholor, I don't want to pay him that much. He'd have to take a pay cut, and there's no reason for him to do that. The first preseason game at long last is here for the Dallas Cowboys. It's Cowboys versus Broncos. We're going to be live for the entirety of that game with one of our watch parties, having some fun, crushing some beers throughout the show and shots as well. Our goal by the end of that game, 131,000 subscribers. We're not that far away. We are just over 500 away. And I know we have the numbers. A lot of you guys watching the show are not subscribed. Not sure what you're waiting for. Hit that big red button and join us for more free Cowboys videos every single day. More wide receiver talk now, this time on Simi Fehoko. Now, he has upped his play of late in camp. The last couple days, last 5, 6, somewhere in that range, consistently making plays every day. Hey, Fehoko look good. Fehoko look good. Fehoko look good. That's a really good sign for him. With the injuries at wide receiver, Gallup and James Washington in particular, he has benefited and gotten more reps as a result. Now, he is fighting for a roster spot at wide receiver this year. Beyond the hype for Fehoko, Albert Breer had a very interesting, weird, wrong note. Fehoko, this is what Albert Breer wrote recently. Fehoko might be part of that equation too. He looks like he could grow into a real factor in the passing game in his second year out of Stanford. His improvement may mean we see Dallas in more 2 tight end sets, which would help the team manage the wide receiver injuries through September. And it might give the Cowboys some flexibility in how they approach Dalton Schultz's contract situation after the year. So here's the thing, Alberts. He's not a tight end. He's a receiver. Now, I could absolutely see Fehoko playing that big slot role. The modern-day big slot and the modern-day tight end isn't that different in terms of how they're used in the passing game. But being an inline blocker is very different. And I do think we could see Fehoko get some slot reps, especially if the Cowboys move CeeDee Lamb around inside and outside, or if they go 4 wide, he could put Fehoko in the slot. But tight end isn't what he's doing. He's got great size, don't get me wrong on that standpoint. He's got the ability to step up in that area, but he's a receiver. Kind of feel like Breer kind of got confused. Or maybe Albert knows something that nobody else at Cowboys camp knows in terms of how the role for Fehoko will be. He is fighting for a roster spot in the end, along with guys like Dennis Houston, TJ Vasher, Kevontae Turpin. Somebody's going to get cut of that group, barring, knock on wood, injuries. So will Simi Fehoko make the roster? M, for he's going to make it, of course. 5th round pick, great trait, he's going to make the team. Or C, for he gets cut instead. Let me know what you think ends up happening in the comments. Let's look now at some depth chart takeaways. And yes, Fehoko was listed as a receiver, by the way. 3 things that I found interesting relative to what we've already known about this team. First up is left guard, which we've also kind of known. But Connor McGovern was listed as the starter at left guard over Tyler Smith. No or designation. Even though by every account I trust coming out of camp, Tyler Smith has looked better, McGovern has been the starter as they've rotated reps with the ones. I still believe it is a matter of when, not if, the Cowboys officially make Tyler Smith the left guard starter for Week 1. Do you agree with me or no? Sound off. TS for Tyler Smith is your Week 1 starter at left guard, or CM for it's Connor McGovern instead. This is the noteworthy part, and this is where I want to emphasize unofficial from that standpoint. Tony Pollard on returns. That's a big factor here. He is listed as the starter, quote-unquote, at both kick returner and punt returner. Rico Dowdle, Kevontae Turpin, the backups at kick returner, plus Malik Davis down there. Jalen Tolbert and Turpin in there at punt returner. Now, I don't know how accurate this really is. I could see Pollard still being your kick returner, but I do believe that Kevontae Turpin is your favorite to handle punt return duties. When they've been doing the drills, Turpin, sometimes Jalen Tolbert, sometimes Dennis Houston. Very rarely Pollard has been the one back there. I think Kevontae Turpin is still the guy to be your punt returner. We'll know more in the preseason, and we'll see how they fare. Remember, we're a couple years removed from Lance Lenoir is going to be the punt returner, and then he couldn't catch, and the Cowboys went in a different direction. Hopefully Turpin avoids that since he offers more explosive ability compared to Lance Lenoir ever did. Finally, 3 safeties, not 3 linebackers, listed as the starters on the depth chart, which is correct. The Cowboys love multiple safety looks, as they should. Here's how it was broken down on the Cowboys depth chart, and I don't think it's really all that accurate in terms of roles. Jaron Kearse was safety 1. Donovan Wilson, just going from top down, was 2. Malik Hooker 3. Israel Mukuamu, Tyler Coyle, Marquise Bell, and Wanye Thomas. Basically organized in terms of like level of investment and seniority. Mukuamu, a draft pick last year. Coyle, UDFA last year. Then Bell, the top UDFA this year. Then Wanye Thomas. Here's how I would label and sort it, however. Jaron Kearse is your strong safety. Marquise Bell is his backup. Bell is kind of like a starter kit, Jaron Kearse, in terms of his skill set and everything, and I like him a lot long term. He's going to make this team. Malik Hooker, meanwhile, is your free safety. He's going to be deep and playing that single high role when the Cowboys utilize it. And I think Tyler Coyle is the backup there. Someone who has great size speed combo but can cover great ground as well. Do not sleep on Tyler Coyle making this team. Then it's Donovan Wilson, who's kind of your hybrid so they can play some deep, some strong, some normal, quote-unquote, safety. And I'll put Israel Mukuamu behind him since I think he can do a little bit of everything as well for this Cowboys team. I feel better than I can even remember feeling about the Cowboys' safety roster and depth this year. I'm very hyped about that group. Now, this is the end of today's video. If you made it, you're a real one. I appreciate it if you did make it all the way to the end of today's video. So do me a favor, spam a real one in the comments section, and we'll be sure to show you some love in the comments section.